What's going on, Bryce? Lawless. What's going on? I said this before, and what's going on? I said this before. A lot of us are staunch supporters of the Constitution, right? I decided I should have a live going over some of this stuff. This is the Declaration of Rights. The Declaration of Rights. So, these documents mean a lot. And, I just so happen to have a lot of these documents. And I decided that I was going to, it's been a long time since I've even read these documents myself. So the Declaration of Rights was written in 1765. 1765. And then, it says here on the passage of the Stamp Act by the British Parliament in March of 1765. I can't read it. The chat's in the way. Requiring that all legal instruments used in the American colonies should bear a permanent stamp in order to be valid. Delegates from the 9 colonies met in New York on October 7th of the same year to protest against this and other encroachments upon their rights and drew up this declaration. The Stamp Act was repealed in March of 1766. So, going on, I should have disabled the chat. I can't read it because the chat's in the way. So if I stop reading, it's because the chat is in the way. So I'm going to none. Hide all chat messages. Top chat. All right. I hope you guys are still able to chat. I'm not sure. So it goes on to say, the members of this Congress, sincerely devoted with the warmest sentiments of affection and duty to His Majesty's person and government, inviolably attached to the present happy establishment of the Protestant succession, and with minds deeply impressed by a sense of the present and impending misfortunes of the British colonies on this continent, having considered as maturely as time will permit the circumstances of the said colonies, esteem it our indispensable duty to make the following declarations of our humble opinions respecting the most essential rights and liberties of the colonists and of the grievances under which they labor by reason of several late acts of Parliament. 1. That His Majesty's subjects in these colonies owe the same allegiance to the Crown of Great Britain that is owing from his subjects born within the realm, and all due subordination to that august body, the Parliament of Great Britain. 2. That His Majesty's liege subjects in these colonies are entitled to all the inherent rights and liberties of his natural born subjects within the kingdom of Great Britain. 3. That it is inseparably essential to the freedom of a people and the undoubted right of Englishmen that no taxes be imposed on them but with their own consent given personally or by their representatives. And then going back to the top, the whole reason for the Declaration of Rights was because of the Stamp Act in 1765, requiring that all legal instruments used in the American colonies should bear a government stamp in order to be valid. Delegates from the 9 colonies met in New York on October 7th of the same year to protest against this and other encroachments upon their rights, and drew up this declaration. So apparently, I'm assuming, I'm going to keep reading this, that no taxes be imposed on them but with their own consent given personally or by their representatives. So, they were upset because of the Stamp Act. And, they were going to have to pay these taxes. 4, that the people of these colonies are not, and from their local circumstances cannot be, represented in the House of Commons of Great Britain. So, live chat. I'm sorry. I'm turning back the chat back on. So, there we go. So, they were upset. They were getting ready to get these taxes, the Stamp Act levied against them. They were getting the Stamp Act levied against them, but they had no representation in the parliament. And, and the Boston Tea Party was part of that as well. So, the kingdom was trying to levy these taxes against these people, and they had no representation in the House of Commons, in Parliament. They had no voting capability. And so it torqued them. And they didn't want to pay those taxes. They were like, listen, you want to levy these taxes against us, but we don't have any say in the matter. So, that's what upset them. Here we go. We're going to move on. Okay, so I'm going to read that again. That the people of these colonies are not, and from their local circumstances cannot be, represented in the House of Commons in Great Britain. So they're upset. They're getting a tax put on them that they had no say in. All right, I'm changing the page. 147, 148. Here we go. Moving on. So then it goes on to say, this is my first time doing this, so you got to bear with me. That the only representatives of the people of these colonies are persons chosen therein by themselves, and that no taxes ever have been or can be constitutionally imposed on them, but by their representative legislators. So, the Stamp Act, their biggest gripe was, hey, you're imposing this levy against us, but we have no say in the matter. They had no representation in the House of Commons. That all supplies to the crown being free gifts of the people, it is unreasonable and inconsistent with the principles and spirit of the British Constitution for the people of Great Britain to grant His Majesty the property of the colonists. So again, they're upset because the people in England were levying taxes against them without their input. So basically, they were treating them like slaves. We're gonna tax you, and you're gonna get over it. All right, moving on. That trial by jury is the inherent and invaluable right of every British subject in these colonies. That 8, that the late Act of Parliament entitled an Act for granting and applying certain stamp duties and other duties in the British colonies and plantations in America, by imposing taxes on the inhabitants of these colonies, and the said act and several other acts by extending the jurisdiction of the courts and admiralty beyond its ancient limits, have a manifest tendency to subvert the rights and the liberties of the colonists. 9, that the duties imposed by several late acts of Parliament from the peculiar circumstances of these colonies will be extremely burdensome and grievous, and from the scarcity of specie, the payment of them absolutely impracticable. Okay, 10, that as the profits of the trade of these colonies ultimately center in Great Britain to pay for the manufactures which they are obliged to take from thence, they eventually contribute very largely to all supplies granted there to the crown. So, what they're saying is, hey, you're levying this Stamp Act against us. One second. You're levying this tax against us, and we're not seeing anything from it. All the proceeds are going to Great Britain. So the proceeds from the Stamp Acts, they weren't for the benefit of the colonies, the colonists either. It was all going to the crown. It was all going back to the main island, to England. So those people, their argument was, why should we give you guys money if we're not going to get anything out of it? And this is one of the very first documents that led to the Constitution. Well, I'm sorry, to the Declaration of Independence, which ultimately led to the Constitution of the United States. So I'm going to move on. 1 second. 1 second. All right. So now, they're pleading. They're pleading with the crown here, right here on section 12, that the increase, prosperity, and happiness of these colonies depend on the full and free enjoyments of their rights and liberties, and an intercourse with Great Britain mutually affectionate and advantageous. So they're saying, hey, if we're going to give you guys money, we need to have some gain out of it as well. And that was their big complaint. We're sending you our money, but we're not getting anything out of it. 13, that it is the right of the British subjects in these colonies to petition the king or either House of Parliament. Lastly, that it is the indispensable duty of these colonies to the best of sovereigns, to the mother country, and to themselves, to endeavor by a loyal and dutiful address to His Majesty and humble applications to both houses of Parliament to procure and repeal the act for granting and applying certain stamp duties of all clauses, I can't read it because the chat, of any other acts of Parliament whereby the jurisdiction of the Admiralty is extended as aforesaid, and of the other late acts for the restrictions of American commerce. So, this is one of the first documents where they were starting to complain about, hey, you guys are collecting money from us and we're not getting anything out of it. I'm going to go back to the very top. So the Declaration of Rights, 1765, on the passage of the Stamp Act by the British Parliament in March 1765, requiring that all legal instruments used in the American colonies should bear a government stamp in order to be valid. Delegates from 9 colonies met in New York on October 7th of the same year to protest against this and other encroachments upon their rights, and drew up this declaration. The Stamp Act was repealed in March of 1766. And, it doesn't go into, I would have to do further research to see exactly who those individuals were that drafted this document. But, this was one of the founding documents that led to our Constitution. And then it moves on. Let me look at something real quick. So, we had the, 1 second. So I didn't even read. I need to go back and read the instruments of government. I have a feeling that has a lot of bearing on what led up to it as well. But the Declaration of Rights was in 1765. The Declaration of Independence was in 1776. So it took 10 years for them to get to the Declaration of Independence. That's a long time, a decade. And, there was another version of the Declaration of Independence that was written in 1775, the Mecklenburg Declaration of Independence. A lot of people think that it was stolen, that our Declaration of Independence was crafted behind that document. Let me see. I can't see when exactly, I cannot tell exactly without researching it when the Constitution was adopted. But the Federalist Papers were written in 1787, right? The Federalist Papers were what were the arguments made to support the enactment of the U.S. Constitution. Okay, those were the thinkers of the time, and they were the ones that it was all written in for the public to see, and those papers, the Federalist Papers, are what promulgated the adoption of the Constitution of the United States. One second. The Federalist Papers were written by, one second. I'm going to go into those, the Federalist Papers. I don't know how many of you have ever read any of those. The Federalist Papers were written by one second. I'm getting to it. One Declaration of Rights. 1 minute. I'm trying to get to it. And today I'm going off the hook, just, without preparation. I'm looking at the Constitution right now. 199. Give me 1 second. 197. Okay, the Federalist Papers. Here we go. 1 second. The Federalist Papers, 1787. In the interval between the drawing up of the Constitution and its ratification, there appeared in the Independent Journal and other New York newspapers a series of 85 articles under the general heading The Federalists, devoted to expounding and defending the new instrument of government. Most of the articles, most of the articles were written by Hamilton, some 29 by Madison, who wrote the Constitution, and 5 by Jay. Together they form one of the great classics on government, and they exercise a highly important influence in favor of the adoption of the Constitution. So, they had to persuade people to ratify that document. It wasn't just it took time. It took a lot of time. And then, of course, we had the Bill of Rights. That came later. So my intention is we need to go over these documents, because we're all, most of us are constitutionalists, and we support the Constitution. And I believe that we should know what led to the freaking Constitution, how that all came about. And absolutely, that Declaration of Rights is one of the things that caused the U.S. Constitution to come about. And there was documents before that even, and I haven't had the opportunity yet to delve into that. But I think that streams of this nature are important. It's not just about getting out there and doing audits. It's about knowing, I want to know exactly why I'm out there. What's the history behind it? Because a lot of people have gave up their lives to support the Constitution of the United States. A lot of people, millions of people have lost their lives defending the Constitution of the United States. And, millions of people have sworn an oath of office. I had to swear an oath of office to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States, both as in the military and as a civilian. I've had to do it. So, I think it's important that I understand it, and that, what I swore an oath to. And, there's a lot of amendments to the U.S. Constitution. I believe there's 26. There's a shitload of amendments to the Constitution. I would be lying to you if I told you I knew all the amendments to the Constitution. There's no way. 1 second. Let me look real quick. There are. I'm grabbing another document. I have a lot of documents. Let's see. There are, to the Constitution of the United States, there are 26 amendments. 26 amendments to the Constitution of the United States. There's a lot of amendments. All right. Of the last 11 amendments to the Constitution, the 16th through the 26th, 6 deal with elections and voting. The 17th Amendment of 1913 requires popular election of United States senators. The 19th Amendment in 1920 gives women the right to vote. The 22nd Amendment in 1951 limits presidents to 2 terms in office. The 23rd Amendment in 1961 permits residents of Washington, D.C. to vote for president and vice president. The 24th Amendment in 1964 prevents anyone from being denied the right to vote for failing to pay a poll tax. There you go. The 26th Amendment of 1971 extends the franchise to 18 years old. 2 amendments concern the prohibition of intoxicating liquors. The 18th Amendment of 1920 instituted prohibition. One second. And the 21st Amendment of 1933 repealed prohibition. All right, moving on. So I'm not going to go any more than that. But my intention is to go over the Constitution and each of the amendments as well on the live stream. I think it's important. Absolutely. And I've been on for almost a half hour. And again, this is just shooting from the hip. The 16th Amendment of 1913 was the direct result of an 1895 Supreme Court decision that a tax on incomes derived from property was a direct tax and could only be imposed by the rule of apportionment according to population. Accordingly, a constitutional amendment was required to permit a practical national income tax. The 20th Amendment of 1933 eliminated the lame duck problem. After every election, defeated members of Congress, lame ducks, participated in a short session of Congress before newly elected members took office in March. Wow, okay. This was thought to be disadvantageous. A constitutional amendment was required to change the dates on which presidents, vice presidents, and members of Congress took office, for such a change would shorten the terms of those currently serving. The 25th Amendment of 1967 provided for removal of an incapacitated president and for filing a vacancy in the office of vice president, for filling a vacancy in the office of vice president. The latter provision was invoked upon the resignation of Vice President Spiro Agnew in 1973 and upon the elevation of Gerald Ford. So, Gerald Ford was never, ever elected to president or vice president. How many of you knew that? He's the only president that was never elected. He was Speaker of the House. Spiro Agnew was removed. He had to give up his job. Gerald Ford was elevated to vice president of the United States. And then Nixon had to step down. So he became president of the United States. That man served as president of the United States and he was never elected. How many of you knew that? So technically he could have served two more terms. He was that time that he served as president does not count. He could have done 2 4-year terms on top of all the time that he had already done. So, they had to, and a lot of people probably don't even freaking know that man was never elected to president. And the crazy part is he probably would have got elected to president. But when Nixon had to leave, he said that he was not going to pardon Nixon. And he did it. And that's when the Republican Party betrayed him as well. He was already not liked by the Democrats. But when he did that, when he pardoned Nixon, because he said he wasn't going to do it, but he went ahead and did it anyways. And that's why that man never got elected to president. So Gerald Ford was never elected to president. How crazy is that? Think about it. We had a guy serving as president who was not elected by we the people, nor the despised electoral college. I'm no fan of the electoral college. I think presidents should be elected by the popular vote. But we use the electoral college. Anyways, I've been on for 26 minutes now. Okay, proposed constitutional amendments. Equal Rights Amendment. So here's proposals that are out there right now. Equal Rights Amendment. Section 1. Equality of rights under the law shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex. Section 2. Congress shall have the power to enforce by appropriate legislation the provisions of this article. Section 3. This amendment shall take effect 2 years after the date of ratification. That's a proposed amendment. A resolution proposing the so-called Equal Rights Amendment was passed by Congress on March 22nd, 1972, and submitted to the states for ratification. In 1978, the deadline for ratification was extended until June of 1982, at which time the amendment lacked ratification by 3 of a needed 38 states. On July 14, 1982, the amendment was reintroduced into Congress. It was defeated in the House in 1983. I don't even remember that. How many of you remember that? I don't remember that. Now, I'm definitely old enough I was in high school when all this was. I don't even remember that. That they had that. Let me see. What's another one? The District of Columbia Amendment. They had a District of Columbia Amendment in 1978. I don't care about that. Constitutional Convention. Here we go. I'm going to read this real quick. The Constitutional Convention, which wrote the Constitution of the United States, convened in Philadelphia on May 25th, 1787. It was called by the Continental Congress and several states in response to the impending bankruptcy of Congress and a sense of emergency arising from the armed revolt, Shays' Rebellion, in New England. The convention's assigned tasks, following proposals made by the Annapolis Convention and the previous September, was to formulate amendments to the Articles of Confederation. Now, I'm going to be going over that, the Articles of Confederation. The delegates, however, immediately set about writing a new constitution. 55 delegates representing 12 states. 1 second. "55 delegates representing 12 states attended at least part." Oh, this chat is freaking killing me. Part of the sessions. 34 of them were lawyers. Most of the others were planters and merchants. Although George Washington, who presided, was 55, and John Dickinson, 54, Benjamin Franklin, 81, and Roger Sherman, 66. Most of the delegates were young men in their 20s and 30s. Conspicuously absent were the radical leaders of the drive for independence in 1775-1776, such as John Adams, Patrick Henry, and Thomas Jefferson. The delegates' knowledge concerning government, both theoretical and practical, made the convention perhaps the most brilliant such gatherings ever assembled. Yeah, I'm going to go out there. I believe that our Constitution is divine in nature. I think it was a God shot. I believe in God. I believe it was divine intervention. But anyways, that's just me. I don't want to jump around too much. But I have the entire Constitution right here in front of me. And the Genesis, here we go. the genesis of the Constitution. Ready? Here we go. Genesis of the Constitution. The first Constitution of the United States was the Articles of Confederation ratified in 1781. Because this document left too much sovereignty to the states, it was defective as an instrument of government. Some leaders felt that the individual states suffered economically from the lack of a strong central authority. Commercial barriers between the states seemed particularly onerous. They also felt that the lack of unity. One second. The lack of unity among the states was causing serious problems in international relations and the defense of the nation. The weakness of the central government was dramatized by such events as Shays' Rebellion in Western Massachusetts and by the ability of one state to block legislation desired by the other 12. The Annapolis Convention of 1786 called for a general constitutional convention, which met in Philadelphia in 1787. So yeah, I'm sure most of that had to do with how the states made money, because the South always felt like they were at a disadvantage because they relied on agriculture, and the North relied on on a lot more other things. But the South primarily relied on agriculture, and that's why they had all the slaves, and they felt, and they were being, they had to pay the taxes and everything, and they felt like they were not being represented properly. And that eventually led to the Civil War. The Civil War was never about the slaves. I don't know how many of you guys know that. The Civil War was not about slavery. It was about the South required to pay all these taxes, and they didn't have the revenue base. So they were feeling like they were being taxed right. They felt like they were being taxed inappropriately. It was never about slavery. It was about money. It was always about that misrepresentation. All right. Anyways, I got 33 minutes. I'm going to stop here. I just wanted to go from I said I was going to do this, and it's my intention to do it. I'm sure I probably won't get very many people to watch these, but I don't care. I think it's important that that if we're going to support the Constitution, we need to know what caused the Constitution to come to exist. Absolutely. And there's a lot more. There's a lot of documents. Right now I'm just reading American documents, but somebody in the chat mentioned some of the Magna Carta and some other documents, because all of our laws are derived from English law, maritime law. We basically adopted their stuff. But anyways, and that's a whole different issue as well, talking about laws and regulations and all that. The U.S. Code of Federal Regulations, that's done by the executive branch. And, they can do that. Those agencies come out with these regulations, and that's how they get money out of us without going through Congress. They come out with regulations. That's how they jack us. They get us that way too. There's all kind of different ways for them to get money out of us. Anyways, I'm at 34 minutes, and I still got 2 more weeks before I get more data. I'm going to do a little research, and I'm going to study up, and I'm going to come back and maybe go over something else. You'll attend class. I don't think that I think we all know it. We all were taught this. We were all taught this. It's just a matter of refreshing our memories. Because I know this for a fact. They don't like us reading this stuff. They'd much rather inundate us with what Will Smith slapping Chris Rock, and the shit going on in Ukraine and the shit going on in Israel. Lord forbid we actually concentrate on our own problems, and that's real. I'm pointing at you. That's real. It's called distraction. They'd much rather have us caught up in the rat race, worrying about what's the next TV show's coming out and what the next big movie is, than reading the Constitution. That's for sure. That is a cold fact. No doubt in my mind. Anyways, I'm going to take off. And I know a lot of you are used to me, being lighthearted and joking and stuff. But I take this stuff seriously because I know people that got killed defending this Constitution. Personally, I know people that have lost their lives because they swore an oath to this document, and they're dead now. So I take it definitely serious. Anyways, I'm out of here. All of you have a great day. Thanks for tuning in. Those of you that did. I will. Before I leave, I'm gonna say this. I'm highly disappointed with the New England states. I'm highly disappointed with the governments of those states right now, because those were the states that fought. The people that lived in those states were the ones that, those colonists were the ones that reached out and defied the King of England. And now many of those states have super oppressive. They don't give a shit about your rights. New York, Delaware, New Jersey, and they're just trampling on people's rights out there. And it's sad. Don't tread on me. They're treading on people like crazy, like freaking crazy. Anyways, Georgia, those southern states, just they don't even give it. They don't care. They could care less about your freaking civil rights. To this day, they don't care. They don't care. And those people died trying to get our rights out of those states. It's horrifying. I'm watching these videos, and the cops there. I don't care. That one woman in Florida, when they put that blind man in handcuffs. And he's like, well, I am a tyrant. I couldn't believe she said that. Yeah, I'm a tyrant. And she's still working. Anyways, James Hodges. If you don't know about James Hodges, look at it. It's horrifying. The man had a United States flag jacket, and she was throwing it around like it was garbage. I don't know how many of you noticed that. That jacket that she took from him, that was a United States flag. That's how much that man loves his country. The jacket that he wore had the colors of the United States on it. And when they were digging through his pockets, a blind United States vet. And then they had the audacity, after they got his walking stick out of his freaking pocket, that sergeant had the audacity basically to not believe that he was actually blind. You need this stick? Yeah, I'm blind, fool. Yes, I need the stick. That's where we're at. That's where we're at. I'm telling you. And they love having us freaking distracted. They want you to worry about the next Marvel movie. They want you to worry about freaking what celebrity is having sex with what celebrity. They certainly want you to pay attention to what's going on overseas instead of what's going on here. They would rather you worry about what's going on in Ukraine and Israel than what's going on right here in our own country. For sure. Anyways, I'm going to go now. All of you have an outstanding day. And maybe this is what God wants for me, because I can't do those lives because I'm burning through data too much. So maybe this is God's way of steering me back to my original mission, which is supporting and defending the Constitution of the United States and our civil rights as human beings. Anyways, all of you have an outstanding Monday. Stay free. Freaking stand up to tyranny. All right, I'm out of here. LAR, North County Media, I'm out.